Hello and welcome to The Gist. I'm your host, Chris Vetrano, here every week to break down all the things that are happening in pop culture and interviewing the people that make it pop. And today, I want to wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving. If you're listening to the podcast on the day that it comes out, it's Thanksgiving Day. So for you, I hope that you're in the kitchen, you're sneaking bites of some of that delicious Thanksgiving dinner, you're enjoying sips of your favorite alcoholic beverage, and you're thinking about what your drunk aunt might reveal about the family secrets at the dinner table, because that's what Thanksgiving is all about, isn't it? At least for me, it's such a wonderful holiday. I love it so much because, let's be honest, your boy loves to eat. I love food. And so a holiday that centers around that just gives me so much pleasure. It's all of the things. There's no pressure of gifts. I feel like there's just not really a lot that's going on other than cooking and eating and just enjoying time with loved ones. It's so wonderful. So Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays, which is why I could not, despite that it's a holiday, it's still a Thursday, and on Thursdays I deliver my Just episodes to you guys, and I had to deliver one that was dedicated to this wonderful holiday. Also, obviously Thanksgiving is a time to think about what you're thankful for, and this podcast and all of you that have listened to it over the last year are certainly what I'm thankful for. I have so many things to be thankful for, but this podcast that I started just a year ago, not even a year ago, it was at the beginning of this year, I kicked off this podcast with not really a plan of what it was going to be, other than I was going to take the mic and talk about the things that I loved in pop culture. And I had no idea how long I would do it or what it would become. And it's become such a thrilling part of my daily life. And you all have become such a part of my life. And the amount of love and attention and support that has been given to this podcast over the last year is truly something that I'm grateful for. So thank you. I'm living my dreams. I've interviewed so many amazing people. I can't believe, when I think about some of the people that I've interviewed this last year, it's truly wild, because it's people that I have idolized or people that I have been a fan of for so many years. And to now know that I've had these incredible conversations with them, it's really wild. And this is just getting started. So I really am so thankful. We've talked Bravo, we've talked Britney, my last episode dedicated to the woman in me. I hope that you guys were able to, get something out of it, because I felt so manic doing it. It was I've waited so long to talk about Britney on this podcast, and then also the book. And there was just so much that I felt like I needed to talk about and say, but also wanted to be respectful. And so to the book and to Britney and to her journey. And so I really was wow, when I listened back to some of the episode, I was oh wow, I was going through it. And that episode had maybe a little bit too much coffee too, but yes, it's Thanksgiving now, and it's one of my favorite holidays and one of my favorite times of year. And so I wanted to celebrate today with one of my favorite ways to celebrate Thanksgiving that relates to pop culture and to something of my pop culture past that really is so impactful. I've never talked about it on the podcast yet, but growing up, one of my all-time favorite TV shows was Will and Grace. And as a child who, got to watch this series with my mother, who I, was a little gay boy that was not out and was in the closet, and getting to sit next to my mother while we watched a show about two gay guys and their incredible friends and partners and chosen family that they had, created, and this foursome was just so, it brings me so much peace. Because as some of you may know, listening, some of you may not know, I don't know how much I've really shared on the podcast, is I lost my mother when I was 18, and she passed away from ovarian cancer. And so most of my adult life, and which includes my coming out story, she wasn't here for. And so a lot of times I get really sad about that, and that we've never gotten a chance to have that conversation. But I lean on my fandom and the way in which we watched Will and Grace together as my opportunity to sort of come out to her. And so it has a real moment and a touchstone for me. But you know, I also love Will and Grace because of the way that they celebrated the holidays. You know, a couple of these like sitcoms back in the day, they really did their holiday episodes in a way. Obviously, Friends is another one that just really delivered when it came to Thanksgiving episodes and holiday episodes. But nobody did it better than Will and Grace. And so, I wanted to dedicate this episode just to like quickly tell you about a couple of the reasons why I love Will and Grace and encourage you all to go find their Thanksgiving episodes. And so, first of all, just a couple of things about Will and Grace. They had 246 episodes that have aired over 11 seasons. In that time, they were nominated for 96 Emmys. Only 5 comedy series in history scored more nominations than Will and Grace. The show, it went on to win 18 Emmys during its run, and it's incredible just that in itself. But the fact that every single one of the cast members, the primary cast members, won an Emmy for their work in this show is also incredible. There's only been 3 other comedy series that ever achieved that, where all regular cast members, and they were All in the Family, The Golden Girls, and Will and Grace. So it's incredible. It's a real major pop culture milestone and such a moment of history. And obviously, you know, especially those first 8 seasons of the series were so impactful to the LGBTQ community and the way in which they portrayed gay culture in a very mainstream way. And so I'm so thankful for Will and Grace. But again, want to focus on their Thanksgiving episodes. And so I'm going to run through my favorite ones really quickly and just maybe give you a little inspiration of something that once you're full, you're laying on the couch, you've unbuttoned your pants to give yourself a little bit more room before you dive into the dessert tray. Maybe you put on a couple of these episodes just to celebrate the holidays. So the first one that I recommend it's called Homo for the Holidays. It's from season 2. Such a hilarious episode and very touching as well. It was the episode that actually won Sean Hayes his Emmy for the series. And it was his coming out story, essentially. As you know, Jack, played by Sean Hayes on the series, was very flamboyant. But we learn in this episode that his mother, who we met for the first time, she guest starred, Veronica Cartwright played her, he had never come out to her. And I love it. I love, one of my favorite lines is Karen says, "What, is she headless?" Because again, he's so flamboyant. It's like, how did she not know? It's so funny to kind of see what sort of happens. We later learn that Jack has been telling his mother that he at one point was dating Grace. And so they come over for this Thanksgiving, and Jack wasn't happy that Will and Grace had invited his mother over for Thanksgiving because he knew that all of this was going to be revealed. And so then, they are pushing him to say, like, you have to come out to your mother. And they end up at dinner, and over a comedy of errors, which is what the show delivered, as it was, he ended up sort of revealing that Grace had been his girlfriend, and then Karen got jealous that he didn't tell his mother that Karen was his girlfriend, and she got upset about it. And he's like, "I didn't even know you at the time when I said that." And he's like, "But when you did meet me, you should have broken up with her and gotten with me." And so over the course of the Thanksgiving dinner, Grace and Karen have some hilarious moments where they're where they're going back and forth about their fake relationship with Jack. But this series ends with, him eventually coming out to his mother, and, and how that sort of comes to life. And that's all I'm gonna say, because if you haven't seen it, again, it's a really touching moment, and it's holidays are sort of this moment for these sort of family issues to come to light and to deal with them. And so, what a wonderful sort of first Thanksgiving episode that we got from Will and Grace in season 2. So, the second one, and these aren't in order. These are actually in order of my favorites. So there's 4 major Thanksgiving episodes. So my second favorite is called Queens for a Day. It's a 2-parter. It's from season 7, and it's hilarious. First of all, Will is going to visit or going to host or semi co-host Thanksgiving with his boyfriend, played by Bobby Cannavale, in Queens, and he's going for their family Thanksgiving. Of course, the gang joins him, so Jack, Karen, and Grace all come to Queens, and the family dynamic of Bobby's family is, and his, why am I calling him Bobby? His name's Vince, but on the show, Vince's family is so hilarious. And we learn that his sister is a lesbian, but she's engaged to her boyfriend of many years. And she's thinking about coming out at dinner. And so Jack makes it his mission to do that. And she's like, that we're going to make this big moment happen. And Will's like, no, this has to be the perfect Thanksgiving. We can't have any, thing upset the family. And so all these things happen. Karen and Grace are having a sort of hilarious affair with what we later learn is not Vince's brother. It's actually Vince's nephew. And it's so absurd. And, obviously I don't think that storyline would go very well today because, let's be honest, it was probably like borderline statutory issues there because of how he was so young, as we learned. But the way in which the dialogue and the jokes in this one are so hilarious. I mean, everything that happens, from Jack sliding off the plastic furniture, when Jack learns that the sister is a lesbian, the sister who's played by Jamie Lynn Sigler, he says something to the effect of like, well, your parents have done everything right. They raised all their kids gay. So how could it be bad, right? So, but it's so funny. Queens for a Day from season 7. Definitely go check that out. And then I think I said that was my second favorite. I'm doing this like in a countdown. So that was like from 4, 3, and now 2. So are you with me on this countdown? I don't know. It's Thanksgiving, and just be thankful I'm here. But no, but truly my second favorite, on episode, and maybe one of my favorite episodes of all time, is from season 4, and it's called Movable Feast. And again, it's a 2-parter. I think back in the day, around the holidays, NBC did these like supersized must-see TVs where like the Friends episodes and the Will and Graces, they were, instead of 30 minutes, they were like 45. And so in the reruns now, they do them as 2-parters. But it's so, first of all, the opening scene of Movable Feast is so good. It's like them all sort of on the phone and being on call waiting, if you remember what that was back in the day, and each trying to like figure out their Thanksgiving plans, and like, we're not going to go see our families this year because we want to just do our own sort of adult Thanksgiving. And over the course of various calls from their family, they're like, okay, we have to swing by. So then everybody's sort of like, all right, we're going to host our own Thanksgiving, but we're going to go and visit and stop into each of one of our families' sort of various gatherings. And so many things happen in this one. It's so funny when, obviously they have to go visit Bobby Adler, Grace's mom. And her family. We get to see Will's family dynamics, and we also get introduced to the first on-screen Nick Offerman, who later married Megan Mullally, who plays Karen. She's thinking about having an affair because she visited Stan, her husband, in jail. That was her sort of family gathering. And she brings him a turkey, and she says, because obviously the joke of Stan being so fat is that she said, and if you look inside, I hid a little something special, a chicken. And I mean, Karen is one of my favorite characters of all time on any TV show or movie for that matter. She's just one of my favorite characters of all time. And it's incredible. So she's thinking of having an affair. We ultimately learned that Nick Offerman plays the plumber who she considers. And they have a pretty hilarious scene together, and now have been married for a very long time. So Movable Feast from season 4, definitely check this one out. And then if you can only watch one Thanksgiving episode this year, it's got to be my favorite. And now when I say this is my favorite, it's also probably my favorite episode of all time of Will and Grace, because there is so many things that happen that are just wild and hilarious, but the lines, the dialogue, I quote them constantly from this episode. It's called Lows in the Mid-'80s. Again, a two-parter, but it's from season 3. And I think that this is, again, it's one of the best episodes of all of Will and Grace. It has flashbacks to when Will first came out in college. Eric McCormick won his Emmy for the performance in this one. He also, he and Grace in the flashbacks were dating at the time. So we kind of learn the course of their sort of relationship and how it ended up to be this incredible friendship. We get flashbacks to Karen and how she met Rosario, and her maid of many years. And then obviously Jack is a big part of Will's coming out story, because he first met Jack at a college party and realized he was gay, and tries to convince him to come out. And so we kind of learn how he ends up becoming Jack's best friend, or Will's best friend as well. And it's so funny, and there's so many heartwarming moments, and that's what Will and Grace does so well with, I mean, not even just on the holidays, but they always had a touch of heart in the ways in which they would sometimes even deliver really mean, sort of snarky jokes to each other. There was just so much that still made you feel warm. And this episode certainly does that. I mean, one of my favorite things is, they're essentially, the whole episode kicks off with them identifying a woman at a bar, that they're having their Thanksgiving meal together at a restaurant, and there's a woman crying at the bar, and she kind of says that there's some reasons that her boyfriend is feeling distant, and they're like, uh-oh. And it sounds very similar to Grace and Will's relationship in the beginning. And so they then pull her aside to then take her through this story, which we get through the flashbacks. And there's so many things but one of the ways that the episode starts is they're at the bar, and Karen says, well, if we have to wait, I might as well order a bottle of champagne. And everyone's like, oh, that would be nice. And she says, and what would you guys like? Which is, again, it's one of the things I say all the time. It's a quotable that I take from this show, and I always expect a laugh from all of my friends with it, and often get it, but it's not mine. It comes from the great Karen Walker. And I think that, again, it tells this amazing story. It's so funny. The flashbacks are hilarious. The way in which we kind of get their history of how all of this comes together is amazing. And then it ends, and the woman who they're trying to tell the story to doesn't seem to get it. She doesn't understand how it relates to her and Tom, her boyfriend. and I'm not going to recite it because, again, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to ruin it. But one of Karen Walker's and Jack's, I guess, because it's kind of a shared line, one of their like most iconic lines of the entire series happens in this moment. So, again, if you haven't seen it, I say this is where you need to stop everything on your Thanksgiving feast and go put on Lows in the Mid 80s from season 3 of Will and Grace. Because that's what I do on Thanksgiving. And if it's not on Thanksgiving, it's somewhere around Thanksgiving. I do a marathon and I watch all 4 of these episodes because they're my favorite. It's one of my favorite ways to spend the holiday. So that does it for our holiday, very special Thanksgiving episode of The Gist. Again, thank you all for listening over this last 11 months of us doing this podcast. It has been such a joy. And we're going to be back next week with our November pop culture roundup. So I'll deliver November's sort of pop culture moments. And then after that, we are going to take a brief hiatus through the holidays, just for 2 weeks. We have a couple of holiday themed episodes that are going to be becoming in the final sort of weeks of the year. So tune in for those. But yeah, if you're listening and you're with me on this very special holiday that is such one of my favorite days of the year, thank you for listening, and thank you for listening all year. I hope that you all are having a wonderful and safe and happy Thanksgiving, and that you guys are all, surrounded by love. And if you're not, and if you're feeling alone during this holiday, you're also not alone. There are other people that are feeling that way. And so if listening to this podcast gives you any kind of like comfort or feeling like you've got a friend, just know that you do, because I am just right here with you week over week. And of course, you can always find me on socials at CM Vetrano. I'm on all of them. And, reach out, drop me a line, let me know that you need a little extra TLC during this holiday season, because I am with you and I feel you and I've been there. But yeah, until next week, though, it's Chris Vetrano. Thanks for listening. And again, happy Thanksgiving. Talk to you all soon. Bye.